Shadow of the Colossus has been re-released and remastered for the PlayStation 4, and this is wonderful in many ways. And as a quick warning, this review is going to be super wanky, because that's just what happens when people start talking about Shadow of the Colossus. It's like a gut reaction, it's like an instinct. If you are talking about Shadow of the Colossus critically, you will start sounding like you're stuck up your own ass. So I've told you, so now you can't complain, even though you will. First released way back in 2005, and there's a cool personal story. Way back in 2005, I got the original version on my birthday, and back then I was a young man, I was sprightly, I had a skip in my step, the world was my oyster, and I wasn't looking death in the face. Anyway, ever since I first played it, it has actually stuck with me, and I'm talking about every single element, right down to the soundtrack. The atmosphere that Team ICO created was like nothing else, and a huge part of that was the orchestral score that rang out, which matches perfectly to whatever you're doing. So good, I spent a ridiculous amount of money to get it from PlayAsia. 2005 was a very different time. The remaster we have today from Blue Point Games takes all of that magic and makes it work on the PlayStation 4, while also painstakingly recreating everything that made it so amazing 13 years ago and making sure it's still amazing right now. And while the visuals aren't the sole reason Shadow of the Colossus works as well as it does, much like the score, it all ties into the scene that it's trying to create. When you first walk into the environment and just see this vast land ahead of you, and all you can hear is a soft wind, you know what it is. It's damn well breathtaking. Within seconds you've been enticed in, and how it barely tells you anything and lets you explore is as risky now as it was then. It just works. Curiosity is one of the most powerful tools in the world, and one that is rarely used in games, and let's face it, if your intrigue has sunk its claws in you and you need to know what's next, you move forward. You need to see what's round the corner. That's what Shadow of the Colossus nails perfectly, and I mean perfect. On top of that, it's how sparse and empty the world is that is just fascinating. I mean, you spend half your time just walking around, bumping into hurdles and obstacles, and then trying to figure out how the hell you get round that hurdle or that obstacle. And you have as much time as you want to do that. Nothing's going to surprise you, nothing's going to distract you. You simply find a way to get round it, you do get round it, and then you wait until something else gets in your way. Somehow, silence and emptiness fills all the gaps, whereas other games would overload those segments with a bunch of QTEs. And then of course there are the Colossus, or the Colossi, or whatever the hell the plural is. I don't know, but I know you know, and I know you'll let me know in the comments, because you can't help yourself. Anyway, basically serving up as giant puzzles to try and solve. How any development team managed to come up with 16 of these, none of which feel the same and all feel utterly unique, is ridiculous. Aside from the sheer intimidation when you first discover them, the satisfaction when you do discover how to take it down is like nothing else. But then you do somehow get mixed emotions. As soon as you've stabbed one of these majestic beasts in the head a few times and then watch as it crumple to the floor, you're actually left feeling a little bit sad. Here was some magnificent beast that was simply just existing, and then some little shit with a sword turned up and started stabbing away just because he wants to bring someone who may or may not be that important back to life. If that isn't exceptionally mean, I don't know what it is, and there's no two ways about it. You are the villain of the piece. A cold-hearted murderer who isn't thinking about anyone but himself, and this all comes across without a lick of story and hardly any dialogue. That is incredible. If nothing else, you can't just remake a game years after the fact and it be as amazing as it was unless there's something special at its heart to begin with. That's the deal with Shadow of the Colossus. It's not like anything else you can play, and that will always be the case. The Last Guardian proved that. Not even the same studio could create the same power. Probably one of the best games ever made. Shadow of the Colossus is something you should play, even if it doesn't click. You owe it to yourself to see if it does, because if it does, there isn't anything like it, and it will blow your mind. The argument about whether games are art is stupid, because who cares? Just sit down, enjoy your games, and let other people argue about that. However, if you do need Exhibit A, this is Exhibit A. It's almost a stupid thing to review because it's something you have to sit down and experience for yourself, and man, does that sound like I'm up my own ass. But that's what Shadow of the Colossus does. It takes normal human beings and it makes them sound like over-the-top nerds. And all this is before we mention how big the damn thing feels. By the time you get to Colossi number 16, it's almost absurd how far it feels like you've come. And even though the final battle is probably one of the weakest on offer, that's like saying eating that second pizza wasn't as good as the first. Just because you're now a bit full doesn't mean pizza isn't damn delicious. It's only fair to mention your horse Agro too. Much like everything else here, the bond you start to develop is yet another marvel in character design, and before all is said and done, you are genuinely going to be worried about this damn horse. Without Agro, you wouldn't be able to get anywhere, and some Colossi you wouldn't have even been able to defeat. He's your only friend in this world of nothingness. Without him, you'd be absolutely screwed. There's still going to be a lot of people that moan about the controls, even though Bluepoint has actually tidied things up in that regard. It hasn't overhauled them entirely, and that would have been a mistake, because for my money, the controls are actually a part of the experience, but some of those more finicky moments have been streamlined so you don't get as mad as you used to. And like I say, that's not been done away with entirely, but I like that because, again, the controls are a part of the experience, right down to that manic camera, because it really does all tie in. I don't want that changed. To be honest, I didn't have a problem with it to begin with. The way it all worked, even when it did screw you over, added to everything that was going on, and let's face it, after a while, it all just clicked anyway. Much like anything else, it felt unique. So when all is said and done, Shadow of the Colossus, especially this remaster, is frankly brilliant. I'm not into giving scores, because I think they're stupid numbers that wind people up, but if I was, I'd give it a 10 out of 10, and if you watch a lot of my videos on this channel, you know that means I'd give it Marcus Phoenix out of 10. Shadow of the Colossus PS4 is probably going to be the best damn game of 2018. We're only in February. All of this is supported by www.patreon.com/Simon316. There's a link in the description, or you can click the link on the screen, so please do head over there and give whatever you can. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, and then, I don't know, you can leave a comment and tell me how much you disagree or how much you agree, and come yell at me on Twitter, Simon316.